What's going on, guys? It's your boy CMB, back in the building, back with another video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into this one really quickly, guys. So, you guys know Tyson Fury was victorious last Saturday night, guys, retaining his WBC heavyweight title in the trilogy matchup against Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. I said going into this fight, I had Fury as the favorite based on the last fight, and I was proven correct. Fury won the fight fair and square. Now, the whole narrative has been in the boxing community after the second fight, leading up to this fight, all the drama in between was the stuff with Glovegate and, the suit being heavy, and Mark Breland allegedly spiking Deontay Wilder's water, being in cahoots with the other team. It was just a bunch of conspiracy theories thrown out there, and a lot of channels ran with that narrative. And some of these channels I watch, and some things I agree with, what some of these channels say, some things I don't agree with. And you should never agree with everything someone says. You should always be objective in your thinking. That's why you have a brain, to think for yourself. And I was in the ilk of, I didn't really lean towards Wilder. I didn't really lean towards Tyson Fury cheating in that match. I didn't see it quite that way. Even though I've seen some compelling videos, I just could not get myself to believe that that was the case in that fight. I lean more to the fact that Deontay Wilder went into that fight unprepared. He had a bad night. You're in the ring with a guy who is technically sound. He's bigger than you. I won't say stronger than you, but he's a big guy and he's technically sound. And we all know the saying goes, skills pay the bills. Wilder had a puncher's chance in those fights, because Wilder, I know Malik Scott said that Wilder had a lot of tools in his tool belt, in his arsenal. He just pulled them out and they worked on them. But let's face it, Wilder didn't use any of that stuff. He was having a lot of success with his right hand. But then you come up against a guy who's really skilled and it doesn't work out for you. And that's why I thought Wilder lost that second fight. You guys know the first fight was a draw. So all the conspiracy stuff begins. I gave my opinion on it back then. I had a lot of people upset with me, saying I was cooning and all this type of stuff. People were looking at it. They weren't looking at it from I would say, boxing point of view. They were looking at it more as a black versus white issue. And that's not what I was looking at. I'm looking at boxing. I'm looking at the sweet science of boxing. And what I saw was a guy who was more skilled than another fighter, and he used that to his advantage. That's what I saw in that fight. So I said that Wilder should go back to the drawing board, work on his fundamentals, get back in the ring, and try to get his WBC heavyweight title back. Because I'm a fan of Wilder's. And lo and behold, that's what he did. He got rid of Mark Breland. He put Malik Scott as the head trainer, put Jay Diaz to the side, and they went to work on fundamentals. And you guys saw it. They were putting clips out all the time of Wilder adding new wrinkles to his game, using a lot of head movement, throwing combinations, throwing hooks to the body, just doing things that you're not used to seeing Deontay Wilder do. We saw that. So he did exactly what I said he should do. Go back to the drawing board, work on your craft, then come back to fight another day. And that's what he did. And even though he wasn't victorious in this match, you guys know he got knocked out in the 11th round. Just watching that fight last Saturday night proved to me even more that Tyson Fury did not cheat in the second fight. Now, we had the little bit of a hiccup before the fight with the situation with the horsehair gloves. They were talking about Tyson Fury using these gloves and they're not having any padding in them, but the commission deemed those gloves legal to use. So Deontay Wilder opted to use those same type of gloves, even though I thought that was a bad idea for him because of hand problems that Wilder's had in the past. He opted to use them. I guess he wanted to be on an even playing field. So it is what it is. But we all saw it. Wilder came out in the first round. He was doing things that we weren't used to seeing him do. Jabbing to the body. Kind of bewildering Tyson Fury. I thought that was a great game plan going in. I thought he should have stuck to it. He didn't stick to it. When he got knocked down in the third round, he went right back. He reverted right back to what he normally does, and that's loading up on the right hand. And another thing I noticed, that his legs wasn't under him the whole fight after that. He wasn't himself. And remember, in the second fight, he said he wasn't himself. He didn't feel right. And I think that's allegedly where people were talking about the spiking of the water. He was behaving exactly the same way he was in that second fight with him and Fury. That same punch drunk, not being steady on his leg look. Head, chin up in the air, not covering up. It was the same thing. The only difference was he was a lot heavier in this fight. And he gassed out in this fight very, very quickly. So that debunks that there. You're wearing the same type of gloves that Tyson Fury was wearing, and they were deemed legal. You had Jay Diaz before the fight, when the hands were being wrapped, he was right there watching Tyson Fury get his hands wrapped, just like he did in the second fight. In all the other previous fights, I'm sure Jay Diaz has seen other fighters get their hands wrapped. So, how could they get past him putting something in the glove? He's sitting right there watching. He's probably done that numerous times in Wilder's fight. He's been with Wilder forever. So that debunks that. The fact remains that Tyson Fury, in my opinion, he won fair and square. Even though I wanted Wilder to win the fight, you can't take away from what Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Skills pay the bills. When you got a guy who's technically sound and you put that together with him being a big guy, now he knows how to sit down on his punches a lot better. And then you have a guy who's a puncher who has, not as good as, not as technically sound as another fighter. A lot of times the technically sound guy is going to win because he has more tools in his arsenal to fall back on as opposed to you. And that's what happens. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes a fighter has your number. And Tyson Fury is just one of those guys who has Deontay Wilder's number. He can't beat Tyson Fury. He's had 3 times now to defeat Tyson Fury. The first fight was a draw. The second fight he lost in this trilogy. In his third fight, he lost again. He got knocked out in this fight. I know it's hard for a fighter to deal with a loss like that. I'm sure it's hard for him. I'm sure it's weighing on his mind, and that's just one of those things, because when they get in that ring, it's just them in that ring against the other guy. You can't bring your team in the ring. Your fans can't fight for you. It's mano a mano. And I know that's tough to deal with, losing like that, getting knocked out like that. And he said he wanted to go out on his shield. He didn't want anybody to throw in the towel like Mark Breland did. You guys know he fired Mark Breland for throwing in that towel in that second fight. So there was no throwing in of the towel, and he got knocked out in that fight. He went out on his shield like he wanted to, And I'm not saying that to pick on Wilder, but I'm just saying he went out the way he wanted to. And I know it's tough to deal with. And I didn't like the fact that, after the fight, when Tyson Fury went over to the corner, you know, trying to put the stuff to bed, you know, and Deontay Wilder didn't want to be gracious to Tyson Fury in defeat. You know, sometimes you just gotta let that shit go. You know, the better man won that night. You know, as hard as it was for me to watch that, I had to give Tyson Fury his props. He did his thing. You know, he's a great boxer. You know, you can't take that away from him. Whether he's a black guy, whether he's a white guy, whether he's a Hispanic guy, Chinese guy, whatever he is, he's good at his craft. And that's what it should be about. You know, it should be about boxing. You know, I don't want to get on here and make it about, you know, the blacks and the whites and this. Look, we're always going to have racism in society. You know, we're always going to have people who don't like you because you're black. We're always going to have people who don't like you because you're this, because you're that, because you're too tall, because you're too short, because you're too fat. It's always going to be some shit like that. But the fact remains is Tyson Fury was the better man last Saturday night. He had Wilder's number, and Wilder gave it his best shot, you know, and he just came up short, and that's all it is, you know. Now, will Wilder come back? I don't know. Malik Scott said he's, you know, not finished with boxing yet, so I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what Wilder says, because he hasn't really said anything that much. So you guys tell me what you think about the Glovegate situation. Like I said, this fight, to me, made it even more clear in my mind that Tyson Fury didn't cheat in this fight. But, you know, you might think differently, you know. And I'm not shitting on anybody's opinion of that, but that's just my opinion on it. So you guys tell me what you think about this whole situation in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share the videos. It's the CMB. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. And I'm out. Peace.